What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1993 Pontiac Sunbird. Up front is a 3.1 liter V6, and down below is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Pontiac Sunbird for two reasons. First of all, I've driven a lot of J-bodies here on the channel. This is yet another J-body, but it's the Sunbird of which I haven't tried specifically, so I'm excited to share that with you. But the second reason is that this is a convertible. It's sunny here today, and so I get to enjoy a little bit of top-off fun. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 3.1 liter V6 under the hood. Well, this was a relatively average engine for GM. It was the upgrade engine. When I say average, I mean it was used across a lot of different vehicles. Even the Oldsmobile Silhouette minivan got this engine at some point. It actually replaced the turbo option from the late 80s, which although it did drop in power, this makes about 160 horsepower, the power was more on demand because of that low-end torque, so drivers didn't really care all that much. It's a very perfect, clear-cut decision between the 80s and the 90s, where the 80s were all about cool, fascinating turbos, and the 90s, they had given up on turbos. Like I said, paired to it is an automatic transmission. Now, you could find Sunbirds in manual, however, they are incredibly rare, and this one is just the traditional automatic. And last but not least, of course, it is a J-body, J-platform, so it is front-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the Pontiac Sunbird? Well, it's actually a really, really nice experience. That V6 does make the low-end torque and makes driving around town an absolute blast. It's smooth, it's comfortable, and it's very, very enjoyable. Like I said at the top of the video, I was just excited to have some fun in the sun, and the Sunbird definitely helps me achieve that. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a bunch of gauges. Off to the left, we have our oil pressure, fuel, coolant temperature, and battery voltage. In the center, we get the speedometer, and off to the right, we have the tachometer. On the steering wheel, we don't actually get anything. And off to the left, we have our headlight switches, as well as our parking lights. To the right of the gauge cluster, we have the wipers and mist button. Love that these are sort of attached to the gauge cluster. Very, very 80s. And back off to the left, we have a climate control vent. And moving out of the door, we have the latch to get in and out and the locks, but that's it. No window switches found over here. Moving into the center, we do have the radio, climate vent, climate controls, and 12-volt outlet / cigarette lighter. I love the design here. I love the bigger chunky buttons. Very, very 90s. Very futuristic for the era as well. Love seeing all of that. And then down below, we have a cubby and some options for our cassette player. So seek, reverse, eject, and things like that. We do have a little slide-out shelf, and then the shifter. The shifter is the very simple, plasticky, big push-button shifter that GM loved to use in this era, so that is no different. And then we have the handbrake, which is a giant, almost thrusters button from a fighter jet. It really feels like I'm turning on the afterburners, but all I'm doing is actually just engaging park. But then down here, you'll also find the window switches. So they are not on the door, they are found here in the center, which is a little bit odd, especially for American cars. Then we have a little center console, and throughout all of this, we don't have any cup holders, so unfortunately, yet very predictably, it fails the big friggin' bottle test. Now, the seats are very, very, very comfortable. Absolutely exquisite seats. GM knew what they were doing. They nearly wrote the book for seat comfort back in the 1990s. And although they are cloth, they're incredibly comfy. And I wouldn't want to be sitting in anything else here today. I've always said this about older GM products, and it still reigns true here for the Sunbird. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. So, super easy to get back here, especially with the roof off. But once I am back here, spatially not great, but the seats are still very, very comfortable. So even if you are back here, and if you're a smaller guy than me, which is most likely, you are going to be comfortable back here, and you're going to be able to enjoy it. You know, this is such a fun car. It's just fun, and so I can only imagine going to the beach or going to get ice cream sitting back here in a Sunbird, which is also way better name than the Cavalier. The Cavalier reminds me of a guy on a horse with a big long stick, but the Sunbird, I'm just flying through the sunshine, baby. and I love that back here. Let's hop into the very back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, around the back of the Sunbird. If you're new to the channel, this might be news. If you've been around the channel before, this might be, well, old news. 2 keys. So you got 2 keys in this era from GM. Square key was for the ignition. Circle key is for the trunk, like that. Whole piece and taillights come up. And this is a tonneau cover for the top, which is really nice. But that's it. That is the rear trunk space that you get. It's not actually eaten up too much by the convertible top, which is really nice to see. And you can come down here and you do get a donut spare tire. However, there is room for a full-size spare, the owners told me, which is very nice. We also have this little remote trunk release icon here. Very cool to see that. But overall, that is the trunk space of the Pontiac Sunbird. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I love the bright white paint from Pontiac. I think they did it better than most. And although GM did have its paint chipping issues in this era too, I just love how clean it looks. And of course, the wheels look fantastic too. It's just a sensational automobile to look at. And I love this era. It's sort of boxy, but you can see them starting to go towards a more curvy look. And I don't think there's ever been a bigger sweet spot for me as a YouTube channel than this car. So obviously, here is the convertible top, and it is half power. So you come in here. Well, first, you should probably turn the car on. Then you have this up and down button. So power up button. Convertible top comes up like that. Then these little pegs should line up, and you have these big pull tabs that will bring it down the rest of the way, which is really hard to do one-handed, so give me a second. And there you go. As you can see, the hook grabs on, close those up, and the roof is on. For the opposite, you just pull this handle out and put the power back down. So very, very cool to see that. But with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the Pontiac Sunbird from 1993? Well, it's been a very enjoyable experience out here in the sun. And the reason I keep bringing that up is because us Americans, at least, kind of went a little haywire with convertibles back in the late 1980s and 1990s. You could get almost any car you wanted in a convertible format at the time. There's actually a reason for that. So during the oil crisis in the 1970s, there was also a safety crackdown. And so we had the 5-mile-an-hour bumpers. We had all these really restrictive laws put into place for vehicle safety. And so car makers weren't sure if convertibles were going to be able to pass these new strict laws, so they stopped making them pretty much altogether. So once designers and developers of the cars had figured out how to make convertibles safe again, we went a little hog wild. And so you could get vehicles like this, a Pontiac Sunbird, which is, for all intents and purposes, not usually a very special car. You could get it in a convertible. You could get a Cavalier convertible. You could get a Dodge Shadow economy car in convertible. And that was all because we could. That's really genuinely the reason, is because we could again. And we went over a decade and a half without many mass market convertibles. So here it is. And I miss being able to have affordable convertibles. Here in 2024, again, we don't really have many affordable convertibles anymore. We don't really have many economy cars anymore, or just convertibles in general. But this is a segment that used to be so popular. You could have an affordable convertible if you wanted one. You could buy one in or just outside of college. And that's just not the case anymore. And so that's why I was so excited to drive this Pontiac Sunbird. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to James and Bob for letting me take out their Sunbird. They drove this car all the way out from New Jersey here to Detroit for an automotive show, and they invited me out to drive it as well. So I appreciate them reaching out. This car is incredibly clean. James and Bob are wonderful to work with. We'll be filming a lot more stuff. They're great friends, and I appreciate them very, very much. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.